Clara Washington found the pregnancy test in her bathroom trash and felt her entire world tilt on its axis. Positive. 2 pink lines that changed everything. She sank onto the cool tile floor of the penthouse bathroom, her hand instinctively moving to her still flat stomach. Pregnant. With twins, according to her doctor. Twin boys, to be exact, continuing the Park family tradition in the most dramatic way possible. She'd been married to Min-Jun and Jae-Hyun for 6 months. 6 chaotic, beautiful, complicated months of learning to love 2 men simultaneously, of navigating a relationship that defied every social convention, of building something extraordinary from the wreckage of her old life. And now this. Clara. Jae-Hyun's voice came from outside the bathroom door, warm with concern. You okay in there? You've been quiet all morning. She wasn't ready. They'd never discussed children. The marriage had been a business arrangement that evolved into love, but babies? That was permanent. That was real. That was, baby, you're scaring us. Min-Jun's deeper voice joined his brother's. Can we come in? Clara looked at the test in her trembling hand, then at the closed door separating her from the 2 men who'd changed her life. She could hide this, process it alone, figure out what she wanted before involving them. Or she could do what they'd been teaching her for 6 months, trust them with her truth, even when it terrified her. Especially when it terrified her. Come in, she called, her voice barely above a whisper. The door opened. Both twins entered, their expressions shifting from concern to alarm when they saw her on the floor. Then their eyes landed on the pregnancy test in her hand. The silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. 4. 5. We're having a baby? Jae-Hyun breathed, wonder spreading across his face. Babies, Clara corrected, tears spilling down her cheeks. Twin boys. The doctor confirmed it this morning. I'm sorry, I know we never planned. She didn't get to finish. Both men dropped to their knees beside her, arms wrapping around her from both sides, their joy so overwhelming it took her breath away. Sorry. Min-Jun's voice cracked with emotion. Clara, you have nothing to be sorry for. This is perfect, Jae-Hyun finished, kissing her temple, then switching to Korean. Wonbyeoki, you're giving us everything. Hello besties, welcome to Afro-Korean Stories. If you're already feeling the emotion from this opening, please like, share and subscribe. Also turn on that notification button, so you won't miss out on more intense stories like this. Trust me, this journey is just beginning, and you don't want to miss a single moment. Now let's go back to where it all started, 6 months ago, when Clara Washington's life changed forever. 6 months earlier, Clara Washington stood in her small Chelsea gallery, staring at the eviction notice that had just been taped to her door. Radiant Arts, her dream, her baby, everything she'd worked for since leaving Atlanta 5 years ago, was being ripped away from her. 48 hours to vacate the premises or we begin foreclosure proceedings. The words blurred as tears filled her eyes. Her business partner Marcus had emptied their accounts 3 months ago and disappeared, leaving Clara with creditors, angry artists waiting for payment, and a mountain of debt she couldn't possibly pay. She was 28 years old, broke, and completely out of options. Her phone buzzed. A text from her best friend Maya. Girl, I can't make the Harrison Gala tonight. Food poisoning. But you should still go. Use my ticket. Network your ass off. Find yourself a rich investor with deep pockets and good taste in art. Clara almost laughed. The Harrison Foundation Gala was Manhattan's most exclusive charity event. Old money, new money, and people like Clara who had no money at all pretending they belonged. But Maya was right. If she was going to save Radiant Arts, she needed a miracle. Or at least someone with enough money to qualify as one. 3 hours later, Clara stood in Maya's borrowed emerald green dress, feeling like an imposter in a room full of people who belonged. The ballroom was obscenely beautiful. Crystal chandeliers that probably cost more than her entire gallery, marble columns, waiters circulating with champagne that cost more per glass than her monthly grocery budget. She'd been hiding behind one of those columns for the past 20 minutes, trying to work up the courage to actually talk to someone. Anyone. But every time she opened her mouth, her throat closed up with anxiety. The Rothstein piece is derivative at best. A deep voice said somewhere to her left, speaking English with the faintest hint of a Korean accent. He's been painting the same landscape for 15 years. Agreed. Another voice responded, nearly identical to the first but with a slightly warmer timbre. Though derivative sells. Look at his auction numbers. Clara turned, curiosity overriding her social anxiety, and found herself staring at two of the most devastatingly handsome men she'd ever seen. They stood together near the bar, both well over 6 feet tall, with perfect black hair and sharp jawlines. They were clearly twins, dressed in matching black tuxedos that fit like they'd been custom-made, which they probably had been. But it was their differences that caught Clara's attention. The one on the left had an intensity to him, his dark eyes scanning the room like he was constantly calculating, assessing. His posture was rigid with control. The one on the right stood more casually, a slight smile playing on his lips. His eyes warmer despite being the same deep brown as his brother's. Clara recognized them instantly. Everyone in New York knew the Park twins. Park Min-Jun and Park Jae-Hyun, 32-year-old tech billionaires who'd inherited Park Technologies from their late mother and transformed it into a global empire. They were notorious for being inseparable, for their ruthless business tactics, and for the fact that neither had ever been seriously linked to any woman despite being two of the city's most eligible bachelors. She should have looked away, should have returned to her safe position behind the column. But Clara had always been drawn to beautiful things, and these men were masterpieces. That's when disaster struck. A waiter passed too close, his tray tilted at an unfortunate angle. Clara stepped back to avoid collision. Her heel caught on the hem of her borrowed dress, and suddenly she was falling forward, her glass of champagne flying from her hand in what felt like slow motion. The champagne arced through the air in a perfect golden stream, and splashed directly onto both Park twins. The ballroom seemed to freeze. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. A woman gasped. Clara's heart plummeted straight through the marble floor. "Oh my God," she breathed, staring in horror at the champagne stains spreading across two undoubtedly expensive tuxedo jackets. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so incredibly sorry." Min-Jun, she thought it was Min-Jun, the more intense one, looked down at his ruined jacket, then up at Clara. His expression was unreadable, those dark eyes focusing on her with an intensity that made her knees weak. Jae-Hyun, however, surprised her by laughing. The sound was rich and genuine, cutting through the awkward silence. "Well," he said, his smile widening. "That's certainly one way to make an entrance." "I didn't mean to," Clara stammered, her face burning with embarrassment. She grabbed cocktail napkins from a nearby table and approached them, dabbing uselessly at Min-Jun's jacket. "My heel caught," the waiter. "Please let me pay for the cleaning or replacement or whatever you need. I know these are probably really expensive and..." Min-Jun's hand caught her wrist, stopping her frantic tapping. His touch was firm, warm, and sent an unexpected jolt of electricity up her arm. "That won't be necessary," he said, his voice low and commanding in a way that made Clara's stomach flip. "But I ruined your tuxedos," Clara protested, looking between them helplessly. "They're just clothes," Jae-Hyun said, though the particular way his eyes traveled over her suggested he was thinking about much more than fabric. "I'm Jae-Hyun Park, and this is my brother Min-Jun. And you are?" "Mortified," Clara said before she could stop herself. Then, realizing how unprofessional that sounded, she added quickly, "Clara Washington. I run Radiant Arts, a gallery in Chelsea." "An art gallery," Min-Jun said, and something shifted in his expression. "Interest, perhaps. That explains your reaction to the Rothstein discussion." Clara blinked. "You noticed that?" "We notice everything," Jae-Hyun said, his smile widening. "Especially when someone as beautiful as you is trying very hard to hide behind a column." Heat flooded Clara's cheeks again, but this time it wasn't entirely from embarrassment. There was something about the way both men looked at her. Not with the dismissive glances she usually received at these events, but with genuine focus, as if she was the only person in the room. "I should let you both go," Clara said, taking a step back. "Clean up. Again, I'm truly sorry about the champagne." "Have dinner with us," Min-Jun said abruptly. Clara's eyes widened. "What? Tomorrow night?" Min-Jun continued as if he hadn't just made the strangest request in the world. "We'd like to discuss art with someone who actually understands it, Not these pretentious collectors who only buy what their advisors tell them to. And perhaps you can tell us why you were trying so hard to hide tonight, Jae-Hyun added, his tone lighter but his eyes just as intense as his brother's. Something tells me there's an interesting story there. Clara should have said no, should have politely declined and disappeared into the crowd. But there was something magnetic about these two men, something that made her pulse race and her usual caution evaporate. Okay, she heard herself say. Dinner. Jae-Hyun's smile turned triumphant. Perfect. We'll send a car to your gallery at 7. Before Clara could respond, both twins produced business cards from their champagne-stained jackets and pressed them into her hand. Their fingers brushed hers simultaneously, and Clara felt that electric jolt again, stronger this time. Don't overthink it, Clara, Min-Jun said, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Sometimes the best things in life happen by accident. Then they were gone, moving through the crowd with the natural authority of men accustomed to controlling every room they entered, leaving Clara standing alone with 2 business cards, a racing heart, and the distinct feeling that her life had just changed in ways she couldn't begin to understand. The next evening, Clara changed her outfit 6 times before Maya physically restrained her. Girl, it's just dinner, Maya said, though her eyes sparkled with excitement. With 2 billionaire twins who specifically requested your company after you baptized them in champagne. Totally normal. Nothing to be nervous about. You're not helping, Clara muttered, staring at her reflection in the small bathroom mirror of her studio apartment above the gallery. She'd finally settled on a black dress that was elegant without trying too hard, paired with heels that were comfortable enough to run in if this turned out to be some kind of elaborate prank. Clara, do you know how many women in this city would kill for this opportunity? Maya leaned against the doorframe, grinning. The Park twins are legendary. Rich, gorgeous, and completely unavailable. Until now, apparently. They probably just want to discuss art, Clara said, though even she didn't believe that. The way they'd looked at her last night had been about much more than aesthetic appreciation. At precisely 7 o'clock, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your car has arrived, MJ. The car turned out to be a black Mercedes with a driver who held the door open and greeted her by name. Clara slid into the leather interior, her stomach fluttering with nerves and anticipation. They didn't go to a restaurant. Instead, the car drove to a sleek high-rise in Tribeca and pulled into a private underground garage. The driver led Clara to a private elevator that required a key card to operate. Penthouse level, he said with a polite smile, pressing the button and stepping back out. The elevator rose smoothly and Clara's heart rose with it, beating faster with each passing floor. What was she doing? She didn't know these men. This could be dangerous, stupid, reckless. The elevator doors opened directly into a massive penthouse apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows, showcasing the Manhattan skyline. Clara stepped out slowly, her breath catching at the sheer beauty of the space. Modern furniture in blacks and grays, carefully curated art on the walls, ambient lighting that made everything feel intimate despite the enormous square footage. You came, Jae-Hyun said, appearing from what looked like the kitchen area. He'd traded his tuxedo for dark slacks and a white button-down with the sleeves rolled up, revealing strong forearms. The casual look somehow made him even more attractive. You sound surprised, Clara said, finding her voice. Pleasantly so. He crossed the room to her, his movements fluid and confident. Can I take your coat? As Clara shrugged out of her jacket, Min-Jun emerged from a hallway, similarly dressed in dark slacks and a gray button-down. His hair was slightly disheveled, as if he'd been running his hands through it, and Clara found herself wondering what it would feel like to do the same. Clara, Min-Jun said, and she liked the way her name sounded in his deep voice. Thank you for coming. I have to admit, I'm curious why you invited me, Clara said, deciding directness was better than playing coy. You don't know me. Not yet, Jae-Hyun said with that charming smile. But we'd like to. Come, dinner's ready. They led her to a dining area where the table was set for 3 with candles and wine and dishes that smelled absolutely incredible. As they sat, Clara between both twins, she felt a strange sense of rightness, as if this seating arrangement was exactly where she belonged. Did you cook this? Clara asked, looking at the perfectly plated Korean dishes mixed with what looked like Southern-style sides. Jae-Hyun cooked, Min-Jun said with a slight smile. He's the domestic one. And Min-Jun ordered the Southern food, Jae-Hyun added, switching between English and the Korean term of respect for his older brother. We did some research. Found out you're from Atlanta originally. Thought you might appreciate a taste of home. Clara's heart squeezed unexpectedly. You researched me? Due diligence, Min-Jun said simply, pouring wine into her glass. We don't invite just anyone to our home. Over dinner, the conversation flowed naturally. The twins asked about her gallery, her passion for art, her background. Clara found herself opening up in ways she normally didn't with strangers, telling them about growing up in Atlanta, her mother who'd worked 2 jobs to put her through art school, her dream of creating a space where emerging artists could showcase their work without the gatekeeping of traditional galleries. So why were you hiding last night? Min-Jun asked as Jae-Hyun refilled her wine glass. Clara hesitated, then figured she had nothing to lose. Because my gallery is about to go under. My business partner embezzled our funds and disappeared 3 months ago. I'm 40 days away from losing everything. I went to that gala hoping to network, maybe find a patron or investor, but mostly I just felt like a fraud surrounded by all that wealth. She expected pity or dismissal. Instead, both twins leaned forward with interest. How much do you need? Min-Jun asked bluntly. Clara blinked. I am sorry. To save your gallery. How much? 300,000 to cover the debts and keep operations running for another year, Clara said, then quickly added. But I wasn't telling you this to ask for money. We'll give you 500,000, Jae-Hyun interrupted casually, as if he was discussing the weather. That should cover debts and give you a comfortable operating budget. Clara's fork clattered against her plate. What? No, I can't accept that. Consider it an investment, Min-Jun said. We believe in supporting the arts. You don't even know if my gallery is worth investing in, Clara protested, her head spinning. We know you're passionate and knowledgeable, Jae-Hyun said. That's more valuable than most people realize. There has to be a catch, Clara said suspiciously. Nothing in life is free, especially not $500,000. The twins exchanged a look. One of those silent communications that only siblings, especially twins, could share. Then Min-Jun turned to Clara with an expression so intense it made her breath hitch. There is a condition, he said carefully. Though it's not what you might expect. Clara's heart pounded. What kind of condition? Jae-Hyun reached out and gently took her hand. His touch was warm, his thumb brushing over her knuckles in a way that sent shivers up her arm. This is going to sound insane, he said softly. And you're absolutely free to say no and walk away. But please hear us out. You're scaring me, Clara whispered. Marry us, Min-Jun said simply. Clara's mind went blank. I'm sorry, what? Both of us, Jae-Hyun clarified. Be our wife. Clara pulled her hand back and stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. This is insane. I'm leaving. Please wait. Min-Jun stood as well, his hands raised in a placating gesture. Let us explain. Explain what? Clara's voice rose with panic and confusion. That you're both crazy? You don't marry strangers and you certainly don't marry 2 people. Our mothers will requires it, Min-Jun said, his voice steady and calm despite Clara's agitation. To inherit the full Park empire. Not just the company, but the family trusts, properties, everything. Both Jae-Hyun and I must marry the same woman within 1 year of our 32nd birthday. That deadline is in 3 months. Clara stared at him. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Our mother was unconventional, Jae-Hyun said with a slight smile. She believed that the perfect woman for us would be someone capable of loving us both equally, someone who could see us as individuals while understanding that we're stronger together. She wanted to ensure we didn't repeat our father's mistakes. Your father's mistakes? Clara echoed weakly, sinking back into her chair. He tried to turn us against each other, Min-Jun said, sitting down as well. Constant competition, favoritism, manipulation. He was a traditional Korean patriarch who believed only one son could inherit. Our mother protected us from that, raised us to be partners rather than rivals. Her will was designed to ensure we stayed that way. And if you don't fulfill this condition? Clara asked. Everything goes to our uncle Park Sung-ho, Jae-Hyun said, his expression darkening. A man who would dismantle everything our mother built, and everything we've created. He doesn't care about Park Technologies or its employees. He only cares about liquidating assets and maximizing his payout. So find someone else, Clara said desperately. You're billionaires. Surely there are women who would jump at this opportunity. We've tried, Min-Jun admitted. For the past 11 months. Every woman we've approached has been either repulsed by the arrangement or only interested in the money. None of them felt right. And I do. Clara's voice was barely a whisper. Jae-Hyun met her eyes, and the sincerity in his expression made her chest tight. From the moment you apologized last night, flustered and genuine and beautiful, we both felt it. Something we've never felt with anyone else. A connection. That's insane, Clara repeated, but her voice lacked conviction. Is it? Min-Jun leaned forward, his elbows on the table. You felt it too. I saw it in your eyes when we touched you. The same electricity we felt. Clara couldn't deny it. That spark, that pull, it had been undeniable from the first moment. Even if what you're saying is true, Clara said slowly, marriage is serious. It's not a business arrangement. We're not asking you to love us immediately, Jae-Hyun said gently. We're asking for a chance. Marry us for 1 month. A trial period. Live with us. Get to know us. If at the end of that month you want to leave, we'll divorce quietly. You'll keep the gallery investment, no strings attached, and we'll never contact you again. And if I stay? Clara asked before she could stop herself. Then we'll spend the rest of our lives proving you made the right choice, Min-Jun said, his voice dropping to that low, commanding tone that made Clara's stomach flip. This was crazy. Absolutely, completely insane. Clara should laugh in their faces, walk out, and never look back. But as she sat there between these two incredible men who looked at her like she was precious, like she mattered, like she was the answer to a question they'd been asking their entire lives, Clara felt something shift inside her. She'd always played it safe, always followed the rules. And where had that gotten her? Drowning in debt, betrayed by someone she trusted, watching her dreams crumble. Maybe it was time to take a risk. Maybe it was time to see what happened when Clara Washington stepped outside her comfort zone and into the extraordinary. 1 month, she heard herself say. Trial period. At the end I decide if I stay or go. No pressure, no guilt. Both twins' faces transformed. Hope and desire and satisfaction blooming in their expressions. 1 month, Min-Jun agreed. We'll make every day count, Jae-Hyun promised. Clara took a shaky breath. Then I guess I'll marry you both. The smile that spread across Jae-Hyun's face was brilliant. Min-Jun's was more subtle but no less pleased. And as they raised their wine glasses to toast this insane arrangement, Clara felt terrified and exhilarated and more alive than she'd felt in years. To new beginnings, Jae-Hyun said. To trust, Min-Jun added. To not completely regretting this decision, Clara finished, making them both laugh. As the evening continued, the conversation shifted to logistics, a quiet civil ceremony, a prenuptial agreement protecting her rights, moving her things into the penthouse. But beneath the practical discussions, Clara felt something else brewing. A tension that crackled in the air whenever one of the twins caught her eye or their hands accidentally brushed. When Jae-Hyun walked her to the elevator at the end of the night, he caught her hand and raised it to his lips, pressing a soft kiss to her knuckles that made her entire body heat. Sweet dreams, Clara, he murmured. Min-Jun appeared beside them, and before Clara could process what was happening, he cupped her face gently and leaned in, his lips brushing her forehead in the most tender gesture she'd ever experienced. We'll take care of you, he promised against her skin. In every way. As Clara rode the elevator down, her heart racing and her skin tingling where they'd touched her, she realized that her life had just become infinitely more complicated and infinitely more interesting. And she couldn't wait to see what happened next. I know some of you are watching and thinking, there's no way this could be real. But before you click away, let me tell you, this story gets so much more intense. The question is, will you be here to see it? Because thousands of people watch these stories every day, But only a small percentage actually subscribe. And I have to be honest with you, that hurts. We pour our hearts into bringing you these Afro-Korean romance stories, staying up late to craft every emotional moment, every passionate scene, every twist that keeps you on the edge of your seat. And if you're enjoying this but haven't subscribed yet, you're basically telling us that our hard work doesn't matter enough to you to click one simple button. Is that really the message you want to send? Subscribe now. Don't be that person who takes without giving back. 3 days later, Clara Washington became Clara Park in a quiet civil ceremony with only Maya and the twins' attorney as witnesses. The gold band on her finger felt both foreign and somehow right. Catching the light as Clara signed document after document that legally bound her to two men she'd known for less than a week. You okay? Jae-Hyun whispered as the officiant droned through the final paperwork. Clara met his concerned gaze and found herself nodding. Surprisingly, yes. And it was true. Despite the insanity of the situation, despite every logical bone in her body screaming that this was reckless and impulsive, Clara felt a strange sense of calm. Maybe it was the way Min-Jun's hand rested protectively on her lower back, or the way Jae-Hyun kept smiling at her like she'd just given him the greatest gift in the world. Where are we going? Clara asked as their car left the city behind that evening, heading north. The airport, Min-Jun said, his dark eyes gleaming with satisfaction. We're taking you somewhere you can relax, and we can all get properly acquainted without the distractions of work and city life. We're leaving the country? Clara's eyes widened. Jae-Hyun grinned. We own a private island off the coast of Jeju in South Korea. Seems like the perfect place for a honeymoon, don't you think? Clara had never been on a private jet before. She'd barely been out of the United States except for one college trip to Mexico. And now she was flying to a Korean island with two billionaire husbands who looked at her like she was made of starlight. The flight was surreal. The jet's interior was more luxurious than most apartments, with cream leather seats, a bedroom in the back, and a staff that catered to their every need. Jae-Hyun kept her entertained with stories about their travels, while Min-Jun worked on his laptop but frequently glanced over at Clara, as if checking that she was still real. Tell me about your mother, Clara said at one point, curious about the woman who'd orchestrated this entire situation. Both twins' expressions softened simultaneously. Park Mi-sun was extraordinary, Min-Jun said, setting aside his laptop. She came from a traditional Korean family, but refused to be limited by those expectations. She married our father thinking she could change him, make him see that love didn't require competition or control. She couldn't change him, Jae-Hyun continued, his voice tinged with old pain. But she could protect us. She made sure we grew up knowing that we were stronger together, that our bond as twins was something precious, not something to be weaponized. She sounds incredible, Clara said softly. She would have liked you, Min-Jun said, his eyes meeting Clara's with surprising vulnerability. She always said we'd know the right woman when we met her because she'd see us clearly, not as money or status or a package deal, but as individual people who chose to build a life together. Is that what you think I see? Clara asked. Isn't it? Jae-Hyun countered, his hand finding hers and intertwining their fingers. Clara considered this. It was true. From that first night, she'd noticed their differences, been drawn to both of them for distinct reasons. Min-Jun's intensity excited her, made her feel protected and challenged simultaneously. Jae-Hyun's warmth made her feel comfortable, seen, like she could be fully herself without judgment. Yes, she admitted. I do see you as individuals. But I also see how you fit together, how you complement each other. The smiles that spread across both their faces were identical, and Clara suddenly understood the power of making these two men happy simultaneously. By the time they landed, Clara was exhausted from travel and overwhelmed by everything that had happened in the past 72 hours. A car waited on the small private airstrip, and as they drove through winding roads lined with olive trees and overlooking impossibly blue water, Clara felt like she'd stepped into a dream. The villa was spectacular. A modern structure of white stone and glass built into the hillside, blending contemporary architecture with traditional Korean elements. There were infinity pools and terraces that offered breathtaking views of the sea. The sunset painted everything in shades of gold and pink, and Clara stood on the main terrace, breathing in salt air, and trying to process her new reality. Beautiful, isn't it? Jae-Hyun came up beside her, 2 glasses of wine in his hands. He offered her one, and their fingers brushed as she took it. It's incredible, Clara breathed. Thank you for bringing me here. Thank you for taking a chance on us, Jae-Hyun countered, his voice softer now, more vulnerable than she'd heard before. I know how insane this must seem. It is insane, Clara agreed with a slight laugh. But maybe that's not a bad thing. Safe and sensible was getting me nowhere. Where's your room? She asked after a moment, suddenly aware of the approaching night and what it might mean. Min-Jun and I have the master suite in the East Wing, Jae-Hyun said carefully. We set up a room for you in the West Wing. Your own space, your own bathroom, complete privacy. We meant what we said, Clara. No pressure. Relief and something that might have been disappointment flooded through Clara. That's very considerate. Though, Jae-Hyun added with that charming smile, stepping closer. If you ever want company, our door is always open. The air between them seemed to thicken, charged with possibility. Clara's heart raced as Jae-Hyun reached out and tucked a strand of her natural curls behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her brown skin. You're so beautiful, he murmured, switching to Korean for a moment. Niamu Ariamde. Then back to English. Do you have any idea what you do to us? Before Clara could respond, Min-Jun's voice came from the doorway. Stop monopolizing our wife, Jae-Hyun. Clara turned to see Min-Jun approaching, his expression amused but his eyes dark with an intensity that made her stomach flutter. He changed into casual linen pants and a half-buttoned shirt, looking relaxed in a way she hadn't seen before. I was just making sure Clara knew where her room was, Jae-Hyun said innocently. I'm sure you were. Min-Jun came to stand on Clara's other side, effectively bracketing her between them. She was acutely aware of both their bodies, the heat radiating from them, the subtle cologne that was similar but distinct on each. Min-Jun's was darker, more intense, sandalwood and something sharp. Jae-Hyun's was lighter, warmer, citrus and cedar. I should probably unpack, Clara said, her voice coming out slightly breathless. Or, Min-Jun said, his hand coming to rest on her hip in a touch that was possessive yet somehow still gentle. You could stay here with us, enjoy the sunset, get to know your husbands. The way he said husbands made something clench low in Clara's belly. This was really happening. She was married to these 2 incredible men, and they were looking at her like she was the most fascinating thing they'd ever encountered. Okay, she whispered. They talked for hours on that terrace as the sun set, and stars appeared in the impossibly clear sky. Clara learned that Min-Jun was the strategist, the one who made the hard decisions and carried the weight of responsibility as the older twin. Jae-Hyun was the visionary, the one who saw possibilities and opportunities, who balanced his brother's intensity with warmth and humor. But they were more than their corporate roles. Min-Jun secretly wrote poetry in both English and Korean, but had never shown anyone. Jae-Hyun played piano beautifully and also the gaegeum, a traditional Korean string instrument, sometimes composing pieces inspired by the ocean. They'd learned to sail as children with their mother, and it was one of their few escapes from their demanding father. He wanted us to compete constantly, Min-Jun said at one point, his jaw tightening. Tests, challenges, always trying to determine which of us would be his real heir, which one was stronger, smarter, more worthy. Our mother put a stop to it, Jae-Hyun continued, his hand finding Clara's on the table and intertwining their fingers. She told us that we were stronger together than we'd ever be apart. That real power came from partnership, not dominance. She taught us that in Korean and in English, made sure we understood it in both languages, both cultures. She sounds amazing, Clara said softly, thinking of her own mother who'd worked herself to exhaustion to give Clara opportunities. She would have liked you, Min-Jun said, his eyes meeting Clara's with surprising vulnerability. She always said we'd know the right woman when we met her because she wouldn't try to change us or separate us. She'd understand that we're a unit, but she'd also see us as individuals. Is that what you think I see? Clara asked, echoing their earlier conversation. Isn't it? Jae-Hyun said, his thumb stroking over her knuckles in a way that sent shivers up her arm. Clara considered this carefully. Yes. I see Min-Jun's intensity, how he thinks 10 steps ahead, how he protects the people he loves fiercely. And I see Jae-Hyun's warmth, how he makes people feel comfortable and valued, how he finds beauty in everything. She paused, looking between them. But I also see how you work together, how you finish each other's sentences, how you communicate without words. It's beautiful. The smiles that spread across both their faces were identical, and Clara suddenly understood the power of truly seeing these two men. Not as one entity, not as competition, but as complementary individuals who chose each other every day. As the night grew late, Jae-Hyun walked Clara to her room while Min-Jun dealt with a work call he couldn't avoid. The guest suite was stunning, a massive bed with white linens, doors opening onto a private balcony, a bathroom that was bigger than her entire old apartment. If you need anything, just call, Jae-Hyun said, lingering in the doorway. We're right down the hall. Thank you, Clara said, suddenly nervous now that they were alone. Standing near a bed, the villa quiet around them. Jae-Hyun stepped closer, his hand coming up to cup her face, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone with reverent gentleness. Can I kiss you goodnight? He asked softly. A real kiss this time, not just your hand or forehead. Clara's breath caught. This was it. The moment things shifted from theoretical to real. She could say no, maintain her distance, keep this arrangement purely practical. But she didn't want to. Yes, she whispered. Jae-Hyun's smile was tender as he leaned in slowly, giving her every opportunity to change her mind. When his lips finally met hers, Clara's eyes fluttered closed, her hands coming up to rest on his chest. She could feel his heart racing beneath her palms. The kiss was gentle at first, exploratory, his mouth moving against hers with patient skill. Then Clara made a soft sound in the back of her throat, and something shifted. Jae-Hyun's hand slid into her curls, careful not to disturb them too much, angling her head as the kiss deepened. His other hand found her waist, pulling her closer until their bodies were pressed together. Clara could feel the heat of him, the solid strength, the barely leashed desire in the way his fingers flexed against her hip. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jae-Hyun rested his forehead against hers. "Sasangi," he breathed in Korean, then translated, "My God, Clara. You have no idea what you do to me." "I think I'm starting to figure it out," Clara said, surprising herself with her boldness. Jae-Hyun laughed, the sound rich and delighted. He pressed one more soft kiss to her lips, then her cheek, then her forehead, as if he couldn't quite bring himself to stop touching her. "Sweet dreams, wife," he murmured, the Korean term of endearment. "Anai," rolling off his tongue naturally. After he left, Clara touched her lips, still tingling from the kiss. She got ready for bed in a daze, her mind replaying every moment, every touch. As she lay in the enormous bed, the sound of waves crashing against rocks somewhere below, Clara realized she was in serious trouble, because she wasn't just attracted to Jae-Hyun and Min-Jun. She was starting to genuinely care for them, to want this arrangement to be more than just a business transaction. And that terrified her more than anything. If you're still watching this video, if you're invested in Clara and these twin brothers and what happens next, please subscribe. I'm pouring my heart into this story and your support means everything. Hit that subscribe button, leave a comment telling me what you think is going to happen, and turn on notifications. Because trust me, you don't want to miss what comes next. And if you don't subscribe, you'll miss the most intense part of this story and you'll regret it. Don't be that person.